Jaya Yashodhanandana Jaya Brajana Ranjana Jaya Yashodhanandana Jaya Brajana Ranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya sorry Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We'll also sing Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya as well as we wait for my father. So yep, as usual, we'll just repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agnana Timirandasya Nananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurube Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadhati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakharmitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Mahavishnu Goswami Niti Namine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavati Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashta Praeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavatir Naishiki Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. My father's still engaged in his phone call. So yeah, I guess as he usually says, how did everyone's week go? If you all could, fill up that time for about 2 or 3 minutes, that'd be quite good. Yeah, very well. Srila Prabhu, Sanjay Prabhu, would you like to start? And tell us about how your week went.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Hare Krishna dear devotees. Yes, Prabhuji, everything is all right. Week was pretty busy with children and job and everything. So, but the program we had on Saturday, yesterday, was pretty good at our center. Especially when we chant together, there was very good experience when we all came together and chanted. So, and we started reciting Srimad Bhāgavatam. So that also very good. Yes, Prabhu.
Awesome. Thank you, Prabhuji. I think I've just been told by my mom that we should also sing the Chatur Shloki of the Bhagavad Gita. So for those of you that know the Chatur Shloki, I'll sing one line and then I'll do a little pause so everyone can sing. I'll just sing everything and then you all can sing with me. And we'll also do the translation of the Chatur Shloki of Bhagavad Gita as well. And also we'll also try and do the Srimad Bhāgavatam Chatur Shloki as well. So yeah, we'll do the Bhagavad Gita Chatur Shloki first. Okay. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita Machita madgata pranam bodhayanta parasparam kathayanta shamam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadhami buddhi yogantam yenamam upayanti te tesham evanukampartam aham agnanajam tama nashiyam yatma bhavasto nanadipe nabhasvata Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sorry, it seems like the connection just cut out for a bit. So I'll also do the Bhagavatam prayer. Sorry, my dad is a bit held up at the moment. It'll take about 2 minutes, hopefully. So we'll do the Bhagavatam translation as well as the Sanskrit shlokas as well. So Srimad Bhagavatam Chatur Shloki Ki Jai. Aham eva samevagre nanyad yad sad asad param paschadaham yadetacha yo avishishyeta sosmayam rathe ratam yad pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tadvidyad atmano mayam yatha bhaso yathatama yatha mahanti bhutani bhuteshu chavacheshvanu pravishtanya pravishtani tatateshu nateshvaham eta vadeva jignasam tattva jignasanatmana anvaya vyatire kavyam yasyat sarvatra sarvada. So those were the four Chatur Shloki of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now we'll also do the translations as well. So for the first verse, it is it is I, the personality of Godhead, who is existing before this creation, when there was nothing but myself, nor was there this material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is I, the personality of Godhead, and after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. And the second verse is, O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, it has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. The third one is I can't quite remember the third one. The fourth one is definitely that, O Brahma, those that search after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, most certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. So as you know, as you can tell, my father is still actually held up. So what we can do is, as we did before, if everyone can, just, have a little chat about, what they've learned over the last, few weeks in our program. And, obviously the realization week that was there last week, which was very inspiring to hear from everyone. If we could just, each, start with one thing that we've learned, this week, to until my father comes. So I can start that, I've actually started working a 9 to 5 recently, just started last week. And, it's obviously, for people who are working or studying alongside doing, devotional service, alongside practicing Krishna consciousness, that it is, it can be a difficult thing to balance, and also it presents itself with a lot of unique challenges. But at the same time, it's also got a lot of unique advantages as well. Because, as a lot of you have pointed out in your realizations, that, actually you can practically apply what you've learned here into your own personal lives and into your own work lives. So, for me, obviously, when you work and you have, so many people that are materially inclined, whereas, you are looking to expand your spiritual, your spiritual side, there's always, you always remember that ultimately you leave the result to Krishna. That's one thing that I learned last week, that whatever, your manager will say, whatever, exams you're doing, you put as much effort as you can put, but, ultimately you leave the result to Lord Krishna. And that, gives you the satisfaction that, ultimately whatever you do, you've given your all, but you know that you are not, the source of whatever happens, I think there was a beautiful quote by His Holiness Mahavishnu Goswami Maharaj. And he said that, if you expect, then you're not satisfied. If you don't expect, then, and if you lead everything to Krishna, then, everything will be all right. And I think that's very true. And it's something that can be applied to every, part of your life, and my life especially. So yeah, that is one thing that I've learned this week. And as I continue to learn. So yeah, if any of you would like to share anything that you've learned this week as well, that'd be very nice. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Ambrish Prabhu sent me the text to actually speak on Bhagavad Gita, verse 8.10, but I read it very late. But as Ambrish Prabhu is engaged, I can speak on it if you can check with the Prabhuji.
Yep, absolutely, Prabhuji. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Initially, I thought it should be on first program, but I can speak it now if he's engaged, Just give me a minute.
Yes, Prabhuji. You can speak.
Yeah, I'll just.
Yep. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Okay, can you hear me clearly, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhuji, I can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So, I would like to actually give my realization on Bhagavad Gita, verse chapter 8, verse 10. So this is what we studied during our Wednesday, actually, Hare Krishna Leaders Program. So actually, I don't have the ability to share the screen, to be honest, so I can't show you the verse, so I will just recite it. And you can also actually try to recite after me if you like. Prayana kale manasa chalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva. Sorry, I think actually I got the wrong tune. Prayana kale manasa chalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva Bhuyormadde pranam avesha samyak satam param purusham upaiti divyam prayana kale manasa chalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva Bhuyormadde pranamavesha samyak satam param purusham upaiti divyam prayana kale manasa chalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva Bhuyormadde pranamavesha samyak satam param purusham upaiti divyam. For word to word synonyms, translation and purport, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ji ki jai. So first of all,
Sorry,
I would
Srila
like to
Prabhuji.
thank you, His Grace.
Sorry, Prabhuji. We can't actually see your screen. Sorry, Prabhuji.
Sorry?
We can't see your video.
Oh, you
I
can't
think
see
it's
my video. Just okay.
no. Yeah, sorry, Prabhuji.
Can you see me now?
Yes. Now I can
Okay.
see you. Thank you. All right.
Okay. So first of all, I would like to thank His Grace Amrish Prabhu, His Grace Punipagya Mataji, and His Grace Krishna Samarpan Krishna Prabhu for this wonderful opportunity to speak on Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, verse 10. And thank you very much for everyone to actually bear with me as well, because I'm not that prepared today, but I will give my best shot. So synonyms: prayana kale, at the time of death; manasa, by the mind; achalena, without being deviated; bhaktya, in full devotion; yuktaha, engaged; yoga balena, by the power of mystic yoga; cha, also; eva, certainly; bhruvoyo, between the two eyebrows; madhe, in; pranam, the life air; avesha, establishing; samyak, completely; saha, he; tam, that; param, transcendental; purusham, the personality of Godhead; upaiti, achieves; divyam, in the spiritual kingdom. So at the time of death, by the mind, without being deviated, in full devotion, engaged by the power of mystic yoga, also certainly between the two eyebrows, in the life air, establishing completely, he, that, transcendental, personality of Godhead, achieves in the spiritual kingdom. Translation: one who, at the time of death, fixes his air between the eyebrows and in full devotion engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord, will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. So actually, before we go on purport, actually the translation itself, just to actually clarify, here it says that actually at the time of death, one who fixes his life air between the eyebrows. So this is talking about actually the yogic process, the Ashtanga yoga process, So this was practiced by the actually yogis. Normally, this is not very prevalent in Kali Yuga, but previous yugas, this was very common, where actually yogis, they used to meditate within their heart on the super soul for like thousands of years. So that yogic process is actually described here. And then it says in full devotion engages himself in remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So actually the whole objective is to actually remember Krishna at the time of death. That is the main point. Will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So actually the previous verses in this chapter as well, actually that has actually main focal point is to actually how we can able to remember Krishna at the time of death is described here. And again, the same point is actually emphasized in this verse. So actually we can actually discuss as we go during the purport. So purport, in this verse, it is clearly stated that at the time of death, the mind must be fixed in a devotion on the Supreme Godhead. For those practiced in yoga, it is recommended that they raise the life force between the eyebrows. But for a pure devotee who does not practice such yoga, the mind should always be engaged in Krishna consciousness so that at death he can remember Supreme by his grace. This is explained in verse 14. The particular use of word yoga balena is significant in this verse because without practice of yoga, one cannot come to this transcendental state of being at the time of death. One cannot suddenly remember the Supreme Lord at death unless he is practiced in such some yoga system, especially the system of Bhakti Yoga. Since one's mind at the death is very disturbed, one should practice transcendence through yoga during one's life. So actually, the first actually paragraph in the purpose talks about actually the yogic process as I explained. So through Ashtanga yoga process. So there is actually, I would like to share one reference from Srimad Bhāgavatam. This is actually the pastime of Prithu Maharaj. So it's a Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 23, verse 13. So I will just go to the actually translation for the actually, because we have very limited time left. So the verse explains, in the due course of time, when Prithu Maharaj was to give up his body, he fixed his mind firmly upon the lotus feet of Krishna. And thus, completely situated on the Brahmabhuta platform, he gave up the material body. So in this actually particular verse, where Prithu Maharaj actually, by the grace of Krishna, he could understand the end of life was near. And thus he became very jubilant and proceeded to completely give up his body on Brahmabhuta stage by practicing this yogic process. So Prithu Maharaj was actually initially, he practiced the yogic process, and then he actually, realized the actually Bhakti Yoga process. So he stopped the yogic process and then actually taken up the Bhakti Yoga process later on. But because he practiced the yogic process initially, he already knew, how that worked. And he took the advantage of that process to basically accelerate the process of going back to Godhead. So that is what is actually described in this verse. So it is thoroughly described in the following verses that how one can voluntarily give up the body and return home back to Godhead. The yogic process practiced by Prithu Maharaj at the time of death accelerate the giving up of the body while one is in sound health, physically and mentally. Every devotee desire to give the body while it is sound, physically and mentally. This desire was also expressed by King Kulashekara in his Mukund Mala Strotra. So actually Prithu Maharaj, because he wanted to give up his body and he wanted to give up, accelerate that process because he wanted to be in good state of health, physically and mentally. Because for the actually karmis, the actually ordinary people at the time of death is very painful. Actually, Maharaj describes that actually the experience is like 1,000 scorpion biting at the same time. So we can't even imagine that, if actually a single scorpion bites us, actually the situation for us is very actually terrible. We cannot focus. Means the people who have actually got bitten by scorpion, they can explain, they have the real experience. And if the actually 1,000 scorpion biting at the same time, then how one can actually remember Krishna in that situation? It's basically impossible. And also at the time of death, especially if you are in old age, the actually mucus in the body, it takes over, and it's very even hard to actually recite anything, so there is no question of actually reciting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So that is one of the actually reason the actually yogis, they want to actually give up the body, though who are actually devotees, in when they are in good health, so they can actually remember Krishna, and they can actually chant the Hare Krishna, Muhammad, as they actually give up their body. So by that way, they can actually go back to Godhead. So the next verse actually talks about how he actually gave up the body. So when Maharaj Prithu practiced particular yogic sitting posture, he blocked the doors of his anus with his ankles and pressed his right and left caul and gradually raised his life hair upward, passing it on to the circle of his navel up to his heart and throat, and finally pushed it upward to the central position between his eyebrows. So actually this is actually called the Muktasan actually process, where actually yogis, they actually, when they want to give up the body, they actually raise their life here through this different kundalini, kundali is actually there sat chakras, so by one, they can actually elevate or raise the life here to the point where it becomes actually comes in between the two eyebrows. And once that actually state attains, then he can actually able to penetrate, they call it Brahma Randra. So that is basically hole in a skull. So they can actually able to give up, the life air can pass through their skull through Brahma Randra, and that is a process is what is actually they try to achieve. And by doing that, normal yogis can elevate themselves to different planetary systems. They can go to any planet they like. Even they can go to the actually Vaikuntha planets as well. So that is the power of yogic process. So Prithu Maharaj, even he was actually, great devotee. So he already knew the yogic process. So he used to his advantage, So he just wanted to accelerate the process going back to the Godhead. So this is what is actually in the Bhagavad Gita verse 8.10 actually given the reference, that's what actually yogis should do when they give up their body. And at the same time, the second point is says that he should actually engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion. So that is very important point. So even actually you perfected the Ashtanga Yoga process, but if that process if it doesn't bring you to the Brahma Bhuta platform, then it is not really helpful, because only on a Brahma Bhuta platform, once you actually situate yourself on that platform, then it is possible to actually achieve, that liberation and go back to Godhead. So Prabhupada says, unless actually one actually situated on Brahma Bhuta platform, there is no hope for anyone to go back to Godhead, especially the Vaikuntha planets. So that is actually the important point to realize. And Prabhupada in the second actually paragraph is also, he emphasized that actually in Kali Yuga, it is not practical for many of us, to actually practice this Ashtanga Yoga process. So going to the forest, sitting at one place, as Amrish Prabhu also, previously discussed this point, and actually focusing your mind on the super soul within your heart. And you have to do that for like, many years, sometime, thousands of years, you have to do that practice. So it's very austere process, not practical in Kali Yuga. Maybe there might be, Prabhupada still says that there might be few people, they still can do it, but it's not for everyone. So the easiest process given here is the Bhakti Yoga process. So that is what actually we trying to learn and follow the process given in Srimad Bhagavatam and Srimad Bhagavad Gita. That actually through the Bhakti Yoga process, it's very easy. So as we actually talked, so even you are grahasthas, you can actually, by engaging everything you have, all the resources in service of the Krishna, that is what like we call it Yukta Vairag, So engage yourself, everything that you have in the service of the Krishna, and that way you can purify your existence, and you can also achieve the state of Brahmabhuta platform, by following the Bhakti Yoga process. The process is given, the chanting 16 rounds every day, deity worship, and all the preaching activities. And one has to do all this, Bhakti Yoga process, they call it very easy process, and it's quite blissful process, So you can practice that, but even they actually they call it as a very easy process. It's not that easy, because our mind is very complicated, and that's what actually creates a lot of issues. So even we are doing all these services, the so-called devotional services, preaching activities. So all these actually services has to be done without any motive, So Srimad Bhagavatam talks about this. There is a very famous verse. Savai pumsa paro dharmo yator bhakti radokshajay ahetuki apratihata yayatma su prasadditi. So ahetuki apratihata. So that is very important. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also actually made a comment uh, in actually his commentary on Atmaram verse, where he traced this point. The ahetuki service of the Lord is very important, without any motivation. And unless your service is unmotivated, it is impossible to have it uninterrupted, because in initial stages we do the bhakti, we do actually running around doing chanting, we're doing whatever services given to us, but because we are still very attached to these material possessions, and somehow we always desire material things, and that's why our actually bhakti is not unmotivated. It's always a motive, and because there is a motive, there is always actually interruption in our devotional service. That is my experience, because my devotional service is not that actually continuous. Prabhupada says that we have to be engaged 24/7. So to actually engage ourselves 24/7 in the service of the Krishna is only possible when we actually do these services without any motive. So ahetuki stage can be achieved, but we have to actually follow all the instructions given in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam with the full sincerity. So once we do it with a sincerity, the Krishna, because is very merciful. If you take one step towards Krishna, Krishna will actually take 1,000 steps, So as Guru Maharaj, means I shared this realization last week as well, where Guru Maharaj in one of his transcendental mellows says that for every material desire in your heart, there is actually material body is ready for us in your next life. So unless we get rid of our material desires, it's very hard to break through this actually what we call the Maya, Krishna says that Daivi he Eshi Guname, this actually Maya is very hard to overcome. And it's only possible when we actually take this instruction very seriously, as just we discussed with Amrish Bhu, Prabhupada has given us an end product, of actually chanting 14 rounds, actually doing service to Krishna, engaging everything in service of the Krishna. So this sounds very simple for actually new devotees like me, Oh, this is very easy process, chant 16 rounds and do some services, and I'm actually going to go back to Golok Vrindavan. But it's not that easy unless we purify our actually desires, and that is what actually is the Bhakti Yoga. Because unless we get rid of material desires, there is no hope. So as one of the Bhakti, the definition of Bhakti says that Anya bhilashata shunyam jnana karmadi anavrutam anukolenu krishnanu silanam bhaktir uttama. So first thing, we have to get rid of all these material desires, and we have to make our situation very favorable, to Krishna. We have to organize our life in such a way that actually it will help us to actually perform our devotional services very nicely. So that should be the objective. So Amrishpur says that when you actually begin in Krishna consciousness, you don't really have to give up anything. You only have to add Krishna. So what does that mean is actually you begin the process of chanting, and as you chant Krishna, because has invested all his energies in his holy names, the holy name is very powerful. It purifies your heart, and as one's heart get purified, slowly, you will become detached from the material things. And that is a process, but we have to follow this process very sincerely. And when we follow this process very sincerely, then slowly, you will engage yourself in a devotional service more and more. So that is our experience, Initially, it's very hard for me to find a time to do the 16 rounds of chanting, I barely used to do 8 rounds, in first couple of weeks when I started. So after a few months, it got bit easier, and now 16 rounds doesn't seem that hard, Then you go to the next step of actually improving the quality of chanting. So one has to go through this all these steps, So that way, once you actually purified your actually heart, you are detached from material things, then it is possible to make your devotional service uninterrupted. So ahetuki apratihata, you know. So once your actually devotional service become without motive, then it will become without interruption. Then Prabhupada says that you can able to remember Krishna 24/7, Then you don't have to actually go and look for Krishna, because Krishna is with you 24/7. So that way you can see the God, That's how actually Prabhupada has described that. One can actually see God every second. To seeing God, it doesn't mean that God has to come and actually, stand in front of you. When you say Hare Krishna, Krishna is with you. As Amrish Prabhu also said, when you chant, Krishna is actually dancing on your lips, So, but to get to that conviction is one has to actually develop a faith, As Amrish Prabhu said, because this process is given very easily, we should not minimize it, Krishna has appeared in Kali Yuga as his holy name. So it is same, when Krishna was on this earth planet, in Vrindavan at that time, there are so many people who didn't recognize Krishna as a supreme personality of Godhead because they were not devotees. So now Krishna, he is also present in Kali Yuga as well, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has propagated this actually Sankirtan Mahayagna, the chanting of holy name. So we chant, but how many of us really believe that actually the holy name that we chant is actually Krishna, you are associating with the Krishna. So unless we have that faith, then you will be always looking for Krishna, even if he is standing in front of you. So that is a process, that's how you can have the remembrance of Krishna 24/7. So the crux of this actually verse, to remember Krishna at the time of death. But that's not going to happen, like many devotees share their realization during last Wednesday's program, and everybody actually means actually focus on this point where it is said it's not going to happen in one day, when you become old and when you actually close to your death, then you realize that you're going to die, and then you want to remember Krishna. It's not going to happen, because Srila Prabhupada says that how one spent his life, actually that all that experience accumulates to influence your thinking at the time of death, how you leave your body. It says that whole life of yours is going to flash in front of your eyes, and the things that you most attached to is that's what you're going to remember. So it is very important. That's why this Bhakti Yoga process is given, so that you can fill up your life with Krishna's memories, all this devotional service that you're doing, all the chanting that you're doing, all the preparation that goes behind it. Somehow you are actually engaged in thinking about Krishna. So that way, if you fill your life, entire life with these devotional services, there is a good chance that you will remember Krishna. But that's again depend on the mercy of Krishna, Prabhupada actually means, I remember his sentence very clearly, he says that even if you do all this, and then he says, then with the mercy of Krishna, you may able to remember him, So there is still no guarantee, given. Guarantee is given when you do all this with the sincerity and without any motive. Because once you do that, then actually Krishna will come looking for you, as Guru Maharaj says that, do not look for God, do not look for Krishna. You should act in such a way that Krishna will come looking for you. So even if a time of death, if your physical body is not in a good state, you cannot even able to recite name of Krishna. If you have done the actually sincere service to Krishna uninterrupted, Krishna and will come and chant for you. That is actually means I have remembered this actually instruction, actually once spoken by Amrish Prabhu in one of the programs. So it's ultimately up to the actually extreme causeless of mercy of Krishna that one can able to remember Krishna. So as we sing this prayer, at the end of program, you can only remember Krishna if Krishna remembers you. And Bhagavad Gita verse, 15.15, very famous verse. Sarvasya shaham ridisin nivishto mataha smrti jnanam apohanam cha vedesha sarver aham eva vedo vedanta kridveda vidayeva chaham. So he is actually Krishna is in the heart of all the living entities, and from him all the actually remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness is coming from Krishna. So remembrance is actually coming from Krishna. Forgetfulness will also come from Krishna as well. So if you want to remember Krishna, you must have the mercy of Krishna. It's not you cannot remember Krishna artificially. And unless as you progress in this devotional service, you will actually realize this. I remember this actually realization shared by was I think it's a long time ago. One of the devotee actually, he was a actually it's Avinash Prabhu's son. He shared this realization. I remember now, where actually once he got unconscious. I think I don't remember the actual details around it. And when he got unconscious, he didn't remember anything. He just lost his consciousness. And then he shared this realization that it's not easy to remember Krishna. If you become unconscious and if you actually dying, you're leaving your body, it's not possible. Means, and the same realization I have experienced as well once I actually got unconscious when I fell down. So even I know when just before I got unconscious, I know it's happening to me. And I vividly remember, I told my daughter, just leave me. And that's only few seconds, I know I'm losing my consciousness, but, and I lost it. And then I don't remember anything. When I woke up, I know there is a severe actually pain in my head. And for a few moments, I thought, oh, it was just like a dream. But when later, when I reflected on this experience, then I realized, so my God, I said, we chant 16 rounds every day. But even for a second, I didn't thought about remembering Krishna, when I actually lost my consciousness. So it's not very easy to remember Krishna when you're going to leave your body, because all this contamination that we have in our actually hearts, all these material desires, it's not very easy to actually remember Krishna. Even, for like a neophyte like me who are chanting, it's not very easy. So that's why Krishna actually means previous verses. Krishna means talks about the same point. Yamyam vapi smaran bhavam tyajite ante kalevaram tam tam aivaiti kaunteya sada tada bhava bhavitaha. So whatever the state one remembers, when he leaves his body, that's the state, O son of Kunti, he will attain without fail. So, what we remember about time of Krishna at the death, that's the state we will attain. But as we describe, to remember Krishna at the time of death, we have to begin now. The effort should actually start now. We must engage ourselves in devotional service, actually chanting and reading the scriptures and actually implementing the scriptures, all the preaching activities that we do. So as Prabhupada says that once we actually fill our life with Krishna's activities 24/7, that's how we can have his remembrance, 24/7. And with grace of the Krishna, when you actually leave this body, you can able to remember Krishna. So that is my realization. And Amrish Prabhu is here now. So actually, I will actually hand that over to him.
No, Prabhu, please continue. Thank you very much. Please continue.
So another point, actually, what I realized this actually while meditating on this verse is, as I spoke, actually, our service has to be unmotivated and uninterrupted. So I was thinking on this point, because always I experience this means interruptions, that comes in our devotional services. And the reason that actually we experience so many disturbances in devotional services because we are not focused. When I'm chanting, I'm not focused. So even as we say, the chanting is actually the appointment with Krishna, and as Guru Maharaj actually means described very nicely, when you chant, you associate with Krishna, but if you're not focusing on chanting, then you're just ignoring Krishna, even if you're chanting Krishna, so that is offense in itself. So when we do these services, and we are not focused, or if we have any hidden motives or material motives, that's what actually create the disturbance in your devotional services. So what I realized that, but we are going to have these disturbances in the initial stages, but we have to actually engage ourselves, sincerely and do our best. So as Krishna says that actually in one of the seed verses of Bhagavad Gita, Tesham satatu yuktanam bhajtam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogantam enamama vipuyanti te. So one who is constantly devoted in serving me with love, to them I give them intelligence by which they can come to me. So one who has engaged 24/7 in serving Krishna with love. So with love is very important. Our bhav should be very pure. We should do a devotional service with the objective of actually serving God and not with the objective of expecting anything in return. So because means it's very hard initially, means I have experienced this myself, that we always desiring something, whenever we actually pray to God, we always have some material desire. So because we have this material desire, our bhakti, what we call is a Mishran bhakti, it's not pure bhakti. And as Prabhupada says that unless one comes to the platform of Brahmabhuta stage, it's not possible to actually remember Krishna at time of death and go back to Godhead. So the Brahmabhuta platform is where one has to remember the Brahman, what they call it. So that is very elevated position. This transcendental position is going above the three modes of material nature, where actually modes doesn't affect you. So one has to actually purify. The process is given. One has to engage everything in service of the Lord. So that's what actually is being taught in this program. As we have actually started out, we are slowly trained how to engage, yourself in devotional service. And you can engage your money, but it is said that actually donating money is very easy. You just donate it and that's it. It's very easy process. The important process is to actually give one's time, which is very important. So when you actually engage your time in a devotional services, then it is very helpful because you are engaged for that amount of time and you are learning. When you actually perform devotional service, you actually realize things, as we actually read all these transcendental mellows, we listen to all these lectures. So initially we actually listen to the instruction, but sometimes we don't realize it. But as we perform devotional services, then slowly, depending on how sincere you are, Krishna will actually reveal, you realize these instructions. And as you realize, then actually it will strengthen your faith, as you realize. So that is what I have experienced. So my realization is that means we have to actually continue on this path, even actually if I experience several difficulties, so the difficulties is going to bound to come up, and that will also related to your past karmas as well, in this life or past life, because our karmas is going to actually, as Guru Maharaj says, that actually whatever you have done in the past, whatever you sow is bound to gonna grow. We are going to have these reactions, but if we engage sincerely, then Krishna will give us a strength, So it will not be too hard to go through this these difficult times. With actually, if you are actually engaged in devotional services. So one has to continue, even if you experience difficulties. Even in materialistic life, the people says that, if you actually, the path, the path that you take, and the path with the most stumbling blocks, the most difficult paths will always lead to a beautiful destination. Even actually the materialistic people, they realize this, if you take up to the difficult actually path, you are going to achieve the biggest goals. You cannot able to achieve the biggest goal unless you go through the difficulties. So in bhakti yoga process, what we're trying to achieve is the topmost. We are trying to actually want to go back to Godhead, or actually we try to actually achieve the Brahmaputra platform where we can actually go above the modes and become blissful. And we, most of the actually pure devotees, they don't want to go back to Godhead. They always want to engage continuously in the service of the Lord. So if we actually aiming for that, then the path initially may not be that actually easy. We have to go through a lot of difficulties. But one who is determined, despite all these difficulties, and one who can actually make every effort to stay focused in a devotional service, as Krishna says that one who's constantly engaged, in serving him with love. So one who's doing every effort to remain focused in his devotional service and try to serve the Lord, lovingly, then Krishna will give you intelligence. So Krishna from within your heart actually will give you the instructions, and through that instructions and intelligence, you will progress in the devotional service. And that way, with his actually extreme causeless mercy, maybe you can able to remember Krishna, when you give his body. Or actually, if you're able to actually perfect your life, you can achieve the Brahmabhuta platform in this actually lifetime. You don't really have to wait for your death. You can actually achieve the stage now. And on that stage, you are blissful. You're, even as Guru Maharaj says that, even you are in this material world, it is like that you are here, but you are also not here. So you are actually detached from this material world. That way, this material waves will not affect us. So we will achieve that actually blissful stage in our present life if we actually seriously take up this process of bhakti yoga. And yeah, so that is what actually Prabhupada has actually described in many of his purports. All the instructions, they all actually culminate on this single point of actually how we can actually elevate ourselves to Brahmabhuta stage and can able to remember Krishna 24/7. So Hare Krishna, that is my realization.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Shital Prabhu, for taking the lead there. I had to go for an important conversation phone call. So very nice. Anyone has to say anything? Any questions or realizations? Please feel free before we complete our discussion today. All right. Thank you very much, Shital Prabhu. Can you please can Navina, or who's going to sing today? Maharaj? Is Sanjeev Prabhu going to sing? Or is it Navina? Yes, Navina, can you do that, please?
Maharaj, please hear us.
Maharaj, please hear us.
We have learned some real good stuff.
We have learned some real good stuff.
Maharaj, we have learned one thing.
Maharaj, we have learned one thing.
And today for you we will sing.
And today for you we will sing.
If our room is clean,
If our room is clean,
then our mind is clean.
then our mind is clean.
If our mind is clean,
If our mind is clean,
we can do anything.
we can do anything.
If our room is dirty,
If our room is dirty,
then so are we.
then so are we.
And if we are dirty,
And if we are dirty,
we are not happy.
we are not happy.
Wasting time
Wasting time
is the greatest crime.
is the greatest crime,
Because wasted time
because wasted time
means a wasted mind.
means a wasted mind.
So blessed is your time
So best is your time
when you're in your prime.
when you're in your prime,
And your whole life
and your whole life
will be sublime.
will be sublime.
If your wealth is gone,
If your wealth is gone,
then there's nothing wrong.
then there is nothing wrong.
But if your health is gone,
If your health is gone,
that's a different song.
that's a different song.
But if your character dies,
But if your character dies,
then the world will cry.
then the world will cry.
Only saintly behavior,
Only saintly behavior,
that's humanity thrive.
that's a humanity thrive.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
We must always remember Krishna
We must always remember Krishna
and never forget him too.
and never forget him too.
But how are we to practice this with so many things to do?
But how are we to practice this with so many things to do?
That is the greatest question.
That is the greatest question.
And here is the greatest clue.
And here is the greatest clue.
You must learn to work so nicely that Krishna remembers you.
You must work so nicely that Krishna remembers you.
So listen very closely
So listen very closely
and make your thinking sharp.
and make your thinking sharp.
We must learn to
We must learn to work so.
work so nicely that Krishna remembers you.
We
Said.
we
We must learn how we can live and work so Krishna.
repeat that, yeah.
Let's learn how we can live and work so Krishna won't depart.
Let's learn how we can live and work so Krishna won't depart.
If something's due tomorrow,
If something's due tomorrow,
finish it today.
finish it today.
And whatever's due today,
And whatever's due today,
do it now, don't delay.
do it now, don't delay.
Your friends might be lazy
If your friends bite me lazy
or doing bad things,
or doing bad things,
but if you think again,
but you think again,
don't follow them,
don't follow them,
and you will win the end.
and you will win in the end.
Whatever work we given,
Whatever work we given,
we do our really best.
we do our very best.
We only live with what we need and give Krishna the rest.
We only live with what we need and give Krishna the rest.
This is how to live, to work and to play. If you learn to live this way, you'll see Krishna every day.
This is how to live, to work and to play. If we learn to live this way, we'll see Krishna every day.
And when our time is up, we take us up above. We sing and dance with him with a heart full of love.
And when our time is up, he'll take us up above. We'll sing and dance with him with a heart full of love.
So chant Krishna's names, his glories and his fame. It's the only way his world could ever become same.
So chant Krishna's names, his glory and his fame. It's the only way this world will ever become sane.
Now please ask this greatest question.
Now please ask this greatest question
and find this greatest clue.
and find this greatest clue.
You can only remember Krishna
You can only remember Krishna
if Krishna remembers you.
if Krishna remembers you.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
जय श्री श्री राधा गिरधारी भगवान की जय,
Jai.
जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा माई की जय, श्री गोवर्धन की जय, जय गौरचंद्र भगवान की जय, जगत गुरु श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, जय गुरुदेव की जय, जय गौरचंद्र प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल की जय। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णवस्ताय भूतले श्रीमती महाविष्णु गोस्वामी नामिने, नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णवस्ताय भूतले श्रीमती भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने, नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पार्षदेश्वरिणे जय। Okay, well, thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow. See you next week, same place, same time. Till the time, please keep chanting Hare Krishna and be happy. Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Lord.
Thank you very much
Hare
everyone
Krishna.
once again. Hare Bol. Thank you. Hare Krishna.